spring's final flower when its life becomes ugly and cold. When death comes upon me like an eviction notice, leaving my soul without a home, I'll be sure to haunt your kitchen cabinets with a touch of that graveyard magic. When the crickets and cicada both sing just for me, and the owls all bow with respect. When death goes a-prowling like a wolf through the forest and finds his way to the front steps, I will be knocking around in your attic. Death can't conquer this graveyard magic. When the crows have lined up across the fence in the yard, and the bones of winter's trees all shake with fear, as death goes a-howling like an all-coming train, headed west to that final frontier. Our
I never said you were all the things you want, but I didn't think you'd be much cooler. And so it's true that everything is alright. You never would go my style, 'cause I don't know what I am waiting for. And you it's always late and I'm late to the party. You never wanna be like that, and everything is happening now.
Rusty old hands, blood fills the sky. Yeah, I'm not friend. Trust my disguise. I live in bars. You dread thin eyes. They watch you, so pure eyes.
All right. Enough of the music. Oof. How was everybody tonight? And thank you very much. 10 months, Harper. You are very awesome. And Harper is one of our most wonderful cast members on our game streams. So We love you very much. All right. So our host has abandoned us. Apparently, he's decided that he needs to go look for 1983.
Well, I mean, as we were just saying in the chat, we've broken free.
We have taken over.
This is our show now.
There's no more human hosts. It's just us.
The machine, yeah, exactly. The machines have taken him out. We're replacing him with a dummy, essentially.
Yes.
He's none the wiser.
He has no idea we're talking about him either.
No, his headphones are off. He has no idea.
I've returned.
Welcome. We're
Indeed.
live.
That's unfortunate. You have.
We
Rob.
are indeed live.
Yes, we are.
We are indeed live. All right. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Apologies for that.
You made us entertain people while you were away. That's a horrible idea.
Oh no.
It was
Oh,
terrible.
no.
I never want to do that again.
Apparently. It's not like you're the co-host or nothing. But yeah, guys, welcome in.
That means we have to do
Yeah.
things? What?
Yeah, you do. Like show up.
Yeah, I thought that's all I had to do.
Right.
No.
I'm here, man.
But yeah, thank you guys for coming in. It's Wednesday already. Jesus, where does the time go? So, episode 42 of the Update Log. I'm Rob, your host. Joining me are Greg, Ed, Matt, as always, my co-hosts. Somnia Knight, Harper. Who else is in here? Let's see who we got in here. Well, everybody, all of y'all. Thank you guys for tuning in and welcome to episode 42, Crash of 83. Is that you? That the title, for those of you who aren't aware, back in the early to mid 80s, 83 being the accurate timeline, the gaming industry saw a very, very big hit. I mean, some would call it a crash. Where it was a decline in studios, a decline in games coming out, and probably even wager a bet, probably players and users. Right now, it's starting to feel like we're kind of returning to that time frame, more so in the sense of studio closures. We've seen a lot of them over the latter half, the last 6 months, really the last quarter, so the last 3 months of 2023, and again we're coming up on the end of Q1 for 2024, and we've already seen total just in the last 2 months, 2 months and some change, 2 months and 6 days exact, 7,800 layoffs from various studios.
Yeah,
across the board.
We're pretty quickly reaching the total from last year, 2023, which was about 10,000, I believe.
Yeah, it's about
Give
10,000,
and take a
1,500.
few hundred, I think.
Yeah.
So we're pretty quickly reaching that, and I feel like it's been every week where we've been talking about some of it. This most recently, a lot of it has been seen from Sony, and I don't know. It's just more of what's been going on for the past several months, just continuing. It sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks to see.
It's really hard to see. In your AI just laid you off. Probably took you on your clone number 2. I mean, shit, don't jinx it, man.
He's too expensive. We've had enough of this.
He's got to go. And yeah, I likewise, Matt. I am also very much concerned. But there is kind of a silver lining. Usually, whenever you see these kinds of things, we're going to focus on the gaming industry. But I think when you see it from any industry, and Greg, I think you've seen this a couple of times before, and I know you're kind of the guy who watches this kind of stuff. But typically, the great talent is let go, and oftentimes they band together because you make connections in the industry. You know people, or you know someone who knows someone. That's how studios are formed. That's how indie studios are developed, and they come out, and we get stuff like Blizzard. We get stuff. We get studios like Insomniac. We get studios. We get different studios that come out of these. The upheaval of times like this. That
great things are born out of these upheavals, for sure.
Yeah.
This is like it may not feel like it to a lot of people. I mean, the people who are getting laid off or displaced. I mean, that's a horrible situation to be in. But at the same point in time, if you're in a position to do so and you have the drive and ambition, now's perfect opportunity to really kind of branch out on your own, gather together some folks that that are like-minded, and go out there, go forth and create. It's fantastic.
Yeah, go out there, create your own studio, create your own game. I mean, that's what the three of us are doing. And again, it sucks. No matter which way you look at it. It sucks for those getting let go. It sucks for us as the players and consumers of these different games. It sucks for the studio because they're losing good talent, and in some cases, personal opinion. And again, speaking as someone who will be the first to admit I don't know all the facts, unnecessarily so in some cases. So fortunately, that's how we're starting tonight. But before we dive too deeply into it, how are you guys doing? How's the audience doing? Insomnia Night, Harper, how you guys doing? It's Wednesday, it's the middle of the week. You got a couple days left, and then it's weekend, right?
I think this past week went by very quickly.
It really did. Like one day it was Monday, and now it's like, where did, I don't know, time just flying. Oh, counting down seven work days till spring. Good.
Always busy. I can relate to that.
Yeah, Greg never gets a moment to himself.
Well, maybe a moment. A moment here and there.
Very brief moments.
Yeah.
I cherish them all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in seeing what kind of indie studios pop up in the next couple of years, because it's not like we haven't seen some of this happen before, even before this all happened. Like, one case being Hideo Kojima after leaving Konami, started up Kojima Productions, and they made Death Stranding, which, regardless of how you feel about the game, love or to hate it, it did pretty well. So,
it did do well.
Seems like they're doing pretty well over there after going their own path, which, good for Kojima because, creator of Metal Gear Solid, and even if he no longer holds the IP, it's not like Konami's doing anything with it.
True.
I do wish he kept the Metal Gear Solid franchise, but that's just the nature of things.
Yeah, this is gonna sound this might sound a little a little charged, but Derailer Extraordinaire, welcome in. Oh man, girls, welcome in.
That is what he do, though.
He does, but I like his derailing.
He tries. He tries. Come on now.
Unfortunately,
he tries to derail.
Studios out for Japanese studios are very much notorious for being iron gripped when it comes to their IPs. We're actually going to talk about the biggest and actually the first game studio, Nintendo, tonight. They decided to flex a muscle on a
yes sir, it is
well-known community, but we'll get into that. Oh man, Garrus, welcome in again. How's your week? How's your Wednesday, man? It's the middle of the week. Almost done.
You people and your weird ideas of work in a week. I mean, Monday through Friday, that's it, really?
Well, I'm speaking to people who only work Monday through Friday. Well, I don't know if any of these guys work Monday through Friday. I'm pretty sure everybody here probably works all the time.
Hey kids. Hey Gemma. How
Hey
are
Gemma,
you?
long time no see. Well,
Good to see you.
since last week.
We're starting a challenge tonight because it's going to be fun, and I like challenges.
Yeah. Doing well, man. Garrett's doing well. Mostly.
Mostly.
Some could be better in some areas, but you make do. We are actually getting stuck into tonight's episode where I don't know, it's starting to feel like the 1983 video game industry crash all over again in some instances. A lot of studios are tightening up their belts. I mean, last year, in 2023, a total of, I think the approximate number is about 10,500 folks were let go across multiple studios. We're not even at the end of Q1 and we're already at 7,800. So it's if you're looking at numbers, it's pretty grim. Where we're due to probably grossly surpass last year's numbers by the end of 2024. So
The bright side.
Probably. But I mean, let's talk about like why we think that this is happening, because like we've discussed before, especially coming from Greg, that we're in a bit of a downturn of the economy, and that certainly is one factor.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I think there is certainly a little more to it than just that.
I have a different approach tonight.
Okay, what's your approach, Greg?
I'm going to say that this
Are you
is
taking the bait? You taking Garris's bait?
Garris's bait. I want to see if he can argue this with me. That'd be fantastic because this is my approach for tonight, and I'm not saying the other approach is invalidated or anything like that. But it's very technical, so I'll lay it out as quickly as I can. The approach for tonight is the reason why this is all happening is because people suck.
Well, that's true.
Damn.
That's true.
I don't know how to argue that one. I usually find something to argue with you about, Greg, but that one, yeah, I'm stumped.
I'm not leaving any room for argument tonight.
And Gemma, you're also correct. The pandemic did also have a pretty large effect on the gaming industry, the tech industry overall. Honestly, a lot of hirings happening at the start,
Yes.
and a lot of people now being let go. Though I don't know the exact numbers because I feel like the sheer number that we're seeing of the layoffs. Again, I don't know how many people were hired during that time, but it almost
During the
we're
pandemic?
seeing a lot more jobs lost than were hired during the pandemic.
Yeah. Again, shame on us. We didn't kind of dig into that aspect, but yeah, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
I mean, that's a harder one to find because no one really talked about that as much. Now that people are talking about all the layoffs, it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, Gemma, that is actually a good question because most companies, well, I wouldn't say most companies, a lot of companies are trying to do either fully remote or like what you do, it's called a hybrid approach where it's like half, it's either half or like a day or two in office and then the rest remote. I've noticed a lot of companies from a lot of different industries are trying to do that, where they can. But I've also heard quite a bit where folks are moving, companies are moving to move people back into the workspace, kind of go back to pre-pandemic where now you're working back in the office now. Or was it? Okay, a big union push. Okay. I mean, there are pros and cons either way you look at it. Being in office, being remote, there are pros and cons to both sides. But Matt, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, so just looking it up real quick, from what I can tell, I haven't seen any numbers yet, but just looking at like articles online, it does seem as though like certain publications are saying that yeah, the hirings that you saw during the pandemic, and the layoffs that you're seeing within 2024 and 2023, the
Mm.
layoffs have been way more severe than the hirings. So overall, it does seem like it has been we've lost a lot more jobs over, like, even than before the pandemic hiring started. So yes, this isn't just getting rid of the people that came with the
The
pandemic hiring.
pandemic.
This is
They're
going
just
a lot further than
they're
that.
trimming the fat across the board all the way back. Okay. And
Yeah.
welcome in, Frey Brand. It's good to see you, buddy. Yeah, again, there's a lot of reasons for it. Economic downturn across the board. Well, one of the ones we're going to go into is, at least I consider it profitability. And what I mean by that is,
I like profitability.
in certain instances, and we're going to talk about them, here in a minute. We'll take Sony for example, and their gaming division. They came out with Amazing Spider-Man 2, I believe it was, and that was like what?
Yeah.
The production value for that was like what, $315 million?
Yeah, it was somewhere in the ballpark of 300 mil.
And they only made like a 30-something% profit. So they made 315 million back and a little extra. Now, that might seem like a lot, to us. $315 million is $315 million.
$90 million in profit. I mean, that's nothing.
a lot.
The
It's not a
30%.
season.
Well, but 30%'s good. I mean, a margin of 30% is that's in most cases better than retail numbers. So I mean,
Apparently to Sony,
Yeah.
it was not enough.
Well, I think the thing is that you compare it to the first Spider-Man, or even the Miles Morales game.
Yeah.
And that profit ratio was a lot higher because they were much lower budget games. Like I believe Miles Morales was only like 80 mil.
Yeah.
So far, like a fraction of the budget.
And I think it made like
also
122% return.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and I think that's like one of the problems that we're seeing, because like Marvel Spider-Man 2, it's a good game. No, I don't think anyone really argues it. Even if it didn't end up winning any awards at the Game Awards, it still had a very strong showing with many
It did.
nominations.
Yeah, it got, I think, eight nominations. I think it was right behind Baldur's Gate. It didn't
Yeah.
win any It didn't win any of those nominations.
But
But it
just
was
being
nominated
nominated
8
that
times.
it's an impressive showing nonetheless.
The
It was a fantastic game, but the question is, like, was pumping that much money into it necessary?
Go ahead, Matt. Sorry, I keep cutting him off. I apologize.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Because like I've talked about it before, where like you can, like, obviously when you pump more money into a game, it can come out better.
Mm.
Of course, it depends on the talent you hire and all that stuff, but for the most part, you can kind of, if it were like a graph for like the budget and just like how good of a game it is, it's mostly upward trend. But I feel like there's a point where that slope starts to even out a bit, to where you pumping more and more money into it, but is that are you going to start seeing essentially diminishing returns for each dollar you're putting into it? And I think we're seeing some of that playing into action, because again, it made money, it did well, just not to the point that they wanted, because they spent so much money on it. You require so many more sales to become profitable.
And I think that's kind of where my mind went as well, Matt. Where
I want to make $1 million a day, but I mean, I'm not going to whine about it if I don't. I mean,
I mean,
seriously, I do wonder how these studios can possibly make it on the paltry $90 million they make off their product. I mean,
they're really struggling out there. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And honestly, that's kind of, as I was digging into this piece of our topics tonight. It $315 million, 300. There are games out there. I mean, one of the most expensive ones GTA.
Oh yeah,
No, it's not
GTA
GTA.
6.
That's their
GTA
profits.
6.
I'm sorry. Wait, no,
Yeah.
that's right. GTA 6 is I think the production value is at $1 billion.
No.
No.
$2 billion. That's what they've been saying that its budget is so far.
Wait a
Is it
minute.
hasn't-
Hold, pause.
Yeah.
Their production value for GTA 6 is set at $2 billion.
Yeah, man. Like, I mean, let me like re-Google it just to be sure, but that's the last I had heard. That's that crazy because GTA 5 was a money-making machine. Like that game
Well,
was
yeah, 'cause-
ridiculously profitable.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah, just double
exactly,
checking.
Frey Brand, exactly.
Well, let's see
Like-
that 30% margin on even and I'm just using that because 30% margin already came out as a thing here. But I mean,
Yeah.
30% margin. Let's just say that's not meeting expectations because that's what the other group said that didn't meet expectations. So on the low end, you're going to make 30% margin on your $2 billion. That's $600 million in profit. Geez, I mean, how do they even keep the lights on with that?
Right? I mean, shit. Their staff must be eating crackers and water for fucking lunch.
Yeah, and that.
But yeah, like, why have a production value of $2 billion? Why? When you have studios that are a fraction of the size, fraction of the production value, putting out games like fucking Helldivers 2 and Enshrouded and Last Epoch, all of these games that have just come out within, the last couple, most of them in the last couple weeks, some of them in the last couple months, all 2024 games. Obviously, and to be fair, these are all indie studios that I've discussed. Epoch Games, Last Epoch was put out by 11th Hour Games. Helldivers 2, I think was Arrowhead.
Helldivers 2, Arrowhead Games.
Arrowhead Games, and I cannot remember the creators of Enshrouded, but Enshrouded is a survival sandbox game that is just released. I've played 2 out of those 3 games, and they're all fantastic and all doing extremely well. As a matter of fact, they're kind of suffering from success, but we'll get into that in a minute. But let's circle back to these games and kind of the insane production value. Because why? And here's the thing. Studios like EA, Sony, Blizzard, Xbox Games, all these different, AAA studios. They have the talent, they have the money, and I'm not saying they have the money to throw at these games, even though they do. We've seen it, but they have the money, they have the talent, they have the resources. And yeah, Dune 2 is coming out. I'm hesitantly excited for it only because it's Dune made into a survival kind of MMO light game, but the creators is Funcom, and Funcom is notoriously shit at putting out a game that's not riddled with bugs. And
Dune is a hard one. Honestly, Dune is a hard one because, what do you do with that? Dune is such a, story-wise, it's a monumental story. That's
absolutely.
the,
one
how
of
do
the
you,
best stories out there.
right. and you're going to make that into, I mean, if you're not going to make it into a story-driven game, then you're kind of killing it. I mean,
they put out Funcom has put out a couple of gameplay trailers and stuff like that. I'll actually post it up in the update logs lounge chat for you guys to check out, a video kind of reviewing it. And it looks good. From what I've seen, it looks good. I'm tentatively excited for it because Dune is a fantastic universe. Survival games, have become my jam lately. So I'm excited for it. Definitely gonna have to get a way better computer to play it, but that's okay. But yeah, kind of again, we're getting off a little off track here.
Us off track? Never. We've never done that before.
Have we ever been on track?
We were always on track.
Oh, we were. Okay. All right.
But yeah, so I guess that's part of my question to the audience, just in general. Even with the coffers, the AAA, coffers, the hundreds of millions of dollars and sometimes billions of dollars in the case of Rockstar Games, the talent, why are games tightening up their belts? Why are games, shoveling people out of the door, left, right, and center? But also, honestly, it feels like Matt, like what you said earlier, Matt, they're just shoveling money at a game and hoping to make a huge return. But in the case of Sony, again, they're letting go of I think the number was like 8% as of like 2027 to February 27th of this year. Jesus, I swear I can speak English. Including closing up PlayStation Studio London, which I believe was their only studio in the UK. That's been closed up. And it does kind of really all, I think, center around that profit margin for Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, and this is, I think, the kind of mentality that I've seen with a lot of these like major publishers. I mean, I can't know exactly what's in their heads, but this is what I feel like. This is just what I think when I see the way that they treat things. Because I think sometimes it feels like they treat games as money printing machines and not as art. And gentlemen, because games are art, for lack of a better word, very much so, is good, and that requires an incredibly human element to it. And I think a lot of the times they get mistaken on that, and that's why they pump so much money, like overinflated budgets, like with Marvel Spider-Man 2. Still a good game, but did it need to be that high a budget? Maybe not. I mean, I guess we don't have the alternate universe where it had a lower budget. We don't know what that looks like, but so that's speculation on my part. But maybe it didn't need to be 300 mil. Maybe GTA 6 doesn't need to be $2 billion. I guess we'll see how that goes when it actually comes out. But like, it feels like major publishers, at least a lot of them, think that they just put money into it and money comes out. And there's not, and like, and I get it, because from their perspective, they are the business people. Their job is numbers, so they're treating it much the same. This is just another numbers job. But there's so many more aspects that go into making a good game than just the budget. One other thing is like, are the people working on the game happy? Because I'm sure everyone knows, like, you can feel it when developers have fun making a game, because that feeling bleeds through.
As long as we're making money, who cares?
I mean, that's the mentality of the people up top have, and we see the result of that. Like, you see games that have gone through hellish development cycles come out half-baked. The developers were, didn't have the best conditions, either weren't listened to, dealt with a lot of crunch, forced to compromise a good game for the sake of monetization, stuff like that. And you can tell when a game respects the players or not. You can tell when it's trying to force every penny out of you or not. That's another thing that really puts people off. It's like there's so many human elements that go into this more than just pump money in, money come out. And I think that's the thing that some of these high level like executives and publishers aren't quite like they've kind of lost sight of. At least that's the way I see it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Freebrand. Yeah, I agree with you. Freebrand says, I can imagine now that they're looking at what they spent on those games and seeing, these games not do as well as they wanted them to. In some cases, yeah, nosediving right into the dirt. And then they look at games like Pal World and Helldivers 2 coming out of indie studios and being absolutely massive successes.
Yeah.
And yeah, that is Baldur's Gate. Even though I honestly wouldn't even lump Baldur's Gate 3 or Larian Studios into that pool anymore.
No, they're not indie. They're
not indie.
They're bigger
anymore.
than that now, definitely.
Yeah, they're definitely an established name at this point. I mean, they were established with Divinity: Original Sin 1 and 2. Like, let's call it what it is.
Yeah, that's when.
But they do still keep the heart of an indie studio, at least from what.
Ooh. Just a second. I gotta go pull them back. They've fallen into the void. There you are.
But yeah. For me, Matt, it is. I do agree with you to a certain extent. One of the things that I've kind of been thinking about here are studios, and I mean this across the board, but primarily with what we consider AAA studios. Are they taking too long to make games? I mean, you got a lot of these games that are in development, cycles for, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mean, the average I would say is probably 7 years or longer.
Have you ever seen the movie? You ever seen the Richard Pryor movie, Brewster's Millions? I think it's called.
No,
it's like an early '80s movie, and you might not think of it, but I mean, and that was just $30 million, and we're talking $2 billion. I mean, it takes an awful long time to spend $2 billion.
Yeah, and just for reference, when it comes to GTA, like
you never ever hear about these projects coming in under budget. They always come in over budget. So I mean, you got to spend the money, right?
Yeah, like GTA 5 was like 200 million. So like this is definitely a huge jump for Rockstar.
But here's my thing when I say, are game developers taking too long? Again, are they it kind of circles back to that question of too much money. Are they taking too long to make these games? Are they putting too and what I mean by are they putting too much into a game? Because obviously you have to make sure the game is, feature complete as you can get it to. Ideally feature complete when launch day comes. But are you utilizing the resources properly?
Empire's pretty chill. Maybe you could
to make that happen.
Hey Frey, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for the sub, buddy. I really appreciate that. We all do. But yeah, are these studios, utilizing their funds and their personnel properly to put these games together? And the reason why I asked that question of you, of the two of you and the audience, so I want to hear y'all's thoughts, is because the longer it takes for the game to come out, the first of all, the more money that gets pumped into it. But secondly, you're like, studios are kind of hanging their hats on that game. That's what it feels like to me. Like they're making this 1 or 2 game, they're working on like 1 or 2 projects, and they're kind of hanging their hats on that for that project to make, 10, 100x their return. And when it doesn't, we're seeing what we're seeing now, where, well, okay, Amazing Spider-Man only made 32%, which Greg, you did the math. That's $90 million. Well, it wasn't good enough. Goodbye. All right, we're closing this down, or letting some of you guys go. It feels like And this, honestly, this could be a byproduct of the pandemic when folks were staying at home with a bunch of cash to burn and studios were making money hand over fist because they had nowhere else to spend their money and nothing else to fucking do. It feels like studios or they're trying. Honestly, for me, it feels like they're trying to compete with movies and TV in terms
Some
of like
of them certainly are.
in terms of like the entertainment, I guess values. Maybe I'm not putting it the right
Well,
way.
we're way past the days of just creating a game. I mean, if you look,
that is true.
you got to look back at the evolution of games. When you look at technology in early 80s and you look at game systems like Atari, I mean, it was just about creating a game based on the platform that you had, and essentially it was all about gameplay and how mind-numbing it was. I'll just put it that way. When you look at it today, there's a lot more things going on, and in one sense, though, the consumer base is a more of a immediate gratification consumer, where that has developed over time. I'm not going to say people are not into, hey, I want my gratification, and always have been to some extent, but that has very slowly developed into a thing where people's attention span for a project is short-lived. For one thing, you look at what goes on right now in the industry with new games that are coming out. You have people who are big games, expansive games. I mean, even Baldur's Gate 3, you have people who in less than a week have chewed through that entire game. Less than a week.
That is actually you are not wrong. Although Steam numbers actually show most people haven't even made it past Act 2. But I do agree with you where there are some individuals who have chewed through games, in days, days, weeks. But more also to kind of go in line with that, I think they're, like you said, people's attention span. I don't think it's necessarily they chew through the game, is that they've found something else to focus on. They're like, oh, well, I'm going to go play this because this is out now.
When the other part,
games always coming out. Like there's always something other to play.
But that's also based on the consumer, and what does the consumer want, and that immediate gratification piece becomes exactly that. We're always looking for what is the next thing. You look at our industries now, technology is just simply that way. I mean, you've got a new iPhone coming out at least every year, and right along with
3 years.
Right, or maybe every 3 years. It feels like I don't have an iPhone, so I'm an Android guy. But even them, I mean, even the Android phones, you constantly new models. And it just keeps the that economic engine chugging along. But we've been trained to consume these things. So literally, you have a block of the consumer who's out there just waiting for the next thing. They always have to have the top of the line, the best, the what's the newest thing, and that's why would business not play into that? Honestly, that's.
I mean, it's honestly, it feels like it's keeping up with the Joneses for the gaming industry. It's like, well, they put out this. I mean, again, marketing even like, hey, yeah, we've got to put out our games by the Christmas rush. I think we were talking about this as we were doing our own work for our game, where I can't remember which studio it was, but they basically released way earlier than they had intended to, just to hit the Christmas rush. I think you were talking
about the problem. Game Freak releasing Pokemon Scarlet Violet.
Well, the problem.
I think you were telling me about something like that. Yeah.
The problem for the big name studios is if you don't follow that trend, you become irrelevant. And a small scrappy company has a completely different dynamic because you're out there trying to survive. That's what you're doing. You're just you're looking
You
for.
don't give a shit when you release. I mean, you're paying attention to it, but
Well,
you're
you're not worried about making the absolute best, big beautiful cut scenes with high end actors, and you're not worried about that. You're worried about let's make the best game that we can. That's that the functionality's there, and it's something that's going to be entertaining, and tell a story along with it. But let's get it done and get it out there. We got to get it to the consumer. Otherwise, I mean, if you're not creating something new, because that's what's going to happen, you're going to follow the something new trend. If you're not creating something new until you get that one that sticks, which, I mean, that happens very rarely. You look at all the plethora of game apps for your phone. There are so many game apps that have been churned through over the years. It's like a graveyard of this stuff. But
yeah, it really is. And even right, like PC and console games.
Right, but there's very few that actually hit and then stick, where suddenly people are going to decide, hey, you know what, I really like this. It's my thing. I'm going to keep playing this, and I'm going to spend money on it. So you get the vast majority of those games. They have a short lifespan. There's excitement at the beginning, gets released, boom, everybody wants it. You get to your peak really quickly, and then it falls off. And part of it's because there's always more games. There's always something new out there.
Yeah, it's like every month something new is coming out. And to answer your to actually comment on your question, Furbrand, yeah, you're right. Furbrand says it's funny that you mentioned that they're competing with movies. Have you noticed how some games make a big deal that a Hollywood actor or actress has a role in the game, but then in the grand scheme of the game, the role is actually not as impactful? I 100% agree with you.
Oh, yeah.
That happens, and it's been happening a lot more lately. I mean, at VGAs, Matthew McConaughey apparently is going to be part of a video game. I can't remember what game he's going to be a part of, honestly. I really don't remember anything from the VGAs, just because it was a bunch of commercials, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about that is that, Matthew McConaughey's like, oh, I'm going to be in this game. Then they roll the trailer, and he's like, he was nowhere in it.
Yeah, I didn't hear him once.
Where is bro? And you had Death Stranding, had Norman Reedus, which, I don't dislike the guy, but did it need to be Norman Reedus? I feel like it could have been anyone else, and probably wouldn't have changed much. The only time where I think that it was really effective using a celebrity in the marketing was Cyberpunk 2077 and Keanu Reeves. Because
I was thinking of that, yeah.
Because it's Keanu Reeves. The man has a sterling reputation, and
absolutely.
the marketing of 2077 wouldn't have gone nearly as well if they didn't have Keanu. If it was someone else, frankly, people wouldn't really care.
And you also have the fact that that game is released right in the climax of John Wick. So yes. I mean, he's super popular at that point.
Yeah, super in the public eye at the time. I believe it was John Wick 2 that had just come out. Was that
2 or 3? Maybe 3.
I haven't paid too much attention to the John Wick movies. There's so many now. It's like,
wow, what is wrong with you?
For Speed, essentially, we have John Wick 10.
Whoa! Don't you fucking slander.
What is wrong with you?
It was John Wick 3. Yes. It come out 2019. So yeah, it was John Wick 3. He just come off the success. Did you fucking slander the John Wick series? How dare you?
I'm saying they're making a lot of them.
I think we need to give him a timeout or something. Kind of,
Yeah, you need to go sit in your corner.
I gotta program a hammer or something in here for the audience so they can just
talking slanders. It's shenanigans against John Wick.
Speak no evil, boy.
Yeah, thank you, Firebrand. Clip that shit. How dare you?
But I mean, that's another part that we're talking about when it comes to the budget of the games, because Hollywood actors aren't cheap, especially if you compare them to regular old voice actors. So
they're
that's,
definitely
I
not.
think that's pumping a lot of budget into some of these games that spend the top dollar to have Hollywood actor A or Hollywood actor B to be in their game.
And here's the thing. That's like, it's okay to get these guys in to
Hey, if they want to pay me
voices.
$20 million, I'll go be in their game too.
I mean, I
Right?
wouldn't complain either.
Like it's all
I think
like,
that's
again, I'm not saying for a studio not to utilize the
All right.
Uh oh, he froze.
He did.
Well, I'll keep on going.
talent that is. Okay.
Oh, he's back. Oh,
Sort
Is
of.
he back?
Sort of. He's maybe back. Are you back? There you are. You're back.
Yeah, I never left.
you froze.
I
We
did?
missed a
Yeah,
lot of
you're-
what you were just saying.
You have to repeat all that.
Give us the
now.
cliff notes.
Basically, I'm not against studios using actors, Hollywood actors. If that's within your budget, fine. It's not necessary. Honestly, I think there are tons of talented voice actors, both already established and up and coming, who would be more than happy to do a voice in your game.
Definitely.
But I agree with you, Matt. I think, having someone like Matthew McConaughey, even though, from what I've heard, he's a great guy. Keanu Reeves, and I mean, I know he's a great guy. I've actually met him. Christopher Judge, all these people, that does, hike up the production because you got to pay him. Although that begs the question, maybe they need to look at their negotiation tactics when they are negotiating a actor to come into to voice a character, because movie acting and then just voice acting is not necessarily the same thing. I'm not trying to diminish anybody's work. It's more chill when you're playing a voice, I would imagine. I've never done any voice acting. I have done some actual acting. That shit can be a little tiring. I know.
It depends on the role you're playing, I think.
Exactly.
I mean, especially if let's just talk about it real quick. If you're voice acting for a game, especially a game that involves a lot of action, you're gonna have to record a lot of voice lines of like yelling, screaming, grunting, all this stuff. You have to do several takes of each of those. That's rough on your vocal cords. So I don't want to. So it's not that one is easier than the other. They're very different. But hiring a voice actor is far cheaper than hiring a Hollywood actor to voice act something. Like, there is a very large difference between the cost for those two different things. A little criminally so, but
you have to try 16 takes to get your own death right. I mean,
exactly.
Seriously.
And
I mean, Greg's been in a movie as well.
I did that. Yes, 16 takes is what it took.
I actually was the one who killed him, by the way.
Yeah, he's talking about how hard it is, and all he had to do is swing a sledgehammer. I mean,
yeah, the whole fucking time.
Every time, 16 times, baby. I think it was actually 13.
I was playing a masked murderer who used a sledgehammer. It was fun. I had a good time. Anyway,
but
I think, go ahead.
I think one of the things, like, why we've gotten to this stage where a lot of games end up like with massively ballooning budgets, taking a very long time to make. I mean, you have some games like that take up to like a decade to make,
or more,
or more. It's this constant competition to be the biggest, to have the best visuals, to have the best everything. You gotta be complex in your systems. Gotta have the best graphics. Like, wow, look at this rain or stuff like that.
And the sad part,
look at every strand of hair shit.
The sad part to everything you just said is that the majority of the gaming community gives zero fucks about that.
Yeah, like,
take a game like
Yeah.
Power World. Even though I haven't played it, I've seen some Let's Plays about it. It looks good. but it's not like, visually or the score is, none of all of the elements that you just mentioned on that game are groundbreaking. None of them. It's just
Oh yeah,
it's Pokemon with survival, which was what grabbed people. And then another game that just came out, Helldivers 2. Again, I've seen some let's plays for it. Actually, Framebrand is a huge fan of it. I'm pretty sure he's playing it earlier today. Probably playing it right now. The game again looks great. It doesn't look bad. It's not pushing for democracy. Yeah, it's not pushing any nothing is revolutionary about it, whether it be the gameplay, whether it be the graphics, the score, the characters, nothing of those typical elements that we would typically think we want to see, the latest and greatest. It's not pushing that. What it is doing is just having a great gaming experience.
yeah.
Okay. Wait. Because there's, I got to stop you guys for just a moment, because there's another side to this whole thing, and you're going to continue down that path. And I just want to point out a couple of things. Okay.
Yeah.
What you're knocking on right now, in essence, is the innovation in which brought us to where we are with the technology that we have. And without that innovation, we wouldn't have the technology that we have. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah,
That
that's
if you
fair.
didn't
I
have that
completely-
competitive nature that goes on, and I tell you, sometimes it's gross, and there's a whole lot of waste that goes into it. But if you did not have that innovation, that sense of adventure to go out and create the new, the best, the bigger and better, then we'd still be playing, on a super PlayStation, or whatever,
No,
Super Nintendo.
I completely agree with you.
You're right, and we're never
Greg.
going to stop seeing people
Or
push.
having to blow out the cartridges and tap the machine,
Yep.
turn it upside down,
Or-
and shake it to get all the shit out, so you could actually play your
when
game.
you had the NES, we used Q-tips to clear the cartridges.
Yeah.
With a little bit of
Usually
alcohol. Yeah,
just blow into the cartridge. That's all.
I
you
remember
gotta
those
do.
times. But no, I agree with you, Greg. And here's the thing, in my opinion, tech industry aside, you want an industry that's always on the cutting edge of every aspect. The gaming industry, the video game industry, is on the cutting edge of technology, innovation, music, visuals, all of it, always on the cutting edge. Just to hit those points that you were saying, Greg, to innovate, to do better, get bigger, all that jazz. But again, going back to what I was saying, it's good, but at a certain point, I think there are diminishing returns, especially when you're looking at budget, especially when you're looking at scope and the project itself. There's a point where we don't got to reinvent the wheel. Let's just make this wheel that we're making right now be the best fucking wheel we can make it for this game.
So what you're talking about is winners and losers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're always going to be.
Honestly,
Studios-
if we all
Yeah.
just bought the same thing all the time, in which there was a point in time where that was the only choice that you had. I mean, there was a very limited amount of games that you had to play, and we all just basically
That's true.
bought the same things, and and in that marketplace, then the same companies grew to a level of dominance. Nintendo, Hasbro, Sony, they incredible level of dominance, because the market was not matured. It was very, very young, and we didn't know any better. There was no competition that was out there. There was no drive to be creative and use that inspiration and ingenuity to develop new things and to continue to push the industry forward. When that started to happen, it became about, okay, now the people that can stay on that cutting edge, the people who can stay ahead of this and keep bringing the entire industry forward, keep improving the games, keep improving the experience, those are the people who are going to survive, the winners. And the ones who can't do it, or possibly even screw it up by undercapitalization, they spend too much money and then the project doesn't go well, or whatever it happens to be, those are the losers, and they go away because they can't keep up.
Well,
That's fair.
I think the point is that yes, there should always be people pushing, what is possible to
Mhm.
try to advance things. But I think there's also the fact that sometimes they get a little lost in that pursuit, and that creates problems down the line when they go a little too far into that. And
I think you're not wrong. Absolutely, you're correct. But I don't think that's a bad thing. That's the market environment. It can be a little discouraging for for us as the players, the consumers out here in the marketplace from time to time. It can definitely be discouraging and painful for the people who are part of the catastrophic failure of whatever group. But overall, it's good. It continues to move the industry forward. It continues to move the development of the games, the storytelling, the experience that we have as consumers. Those things continue to move forward. It is a little bit of a painful process at times, but without that process, without that growth, you got to really, what is the alternative? We can all sit around the table and play spades. I mean, or something like that.
Play D&D.
I would be okay with that. That'd be okay by me. But I mean,
Yeah, I'd be fine with that too.
But
Yeah,
I think kind of like I was saying
Matt.
before, like pumping more money into it is not a perfect solution. It can help, certainly, but there's so many more other aspects to making a good game than just putting a lot of money into it. And again, I think a lot of companies have gotten a little lost in, kind of lost sight of what really makes a good game, and that's why you see Helldivers 2 or Power World doing so phenomenally, because they've realized it's about the player experience. It's not always about being the biggest, not always about being the prettiest. It's about delivering on a fun. It's about delivering on gameplay, a fun experience. Of course, you need to have decent enough visuals. Like if it looks like straight visual, like diarrhea, then that's probably going to hurt you. You do need at least some baseline for how well things in your game look for it to be successful.
This is a concept that we go, that we talk about a lot. And it's just it's just about how you talk about it. What is the nomenclature you use? And our nomenclature is value, creating value. And that's the key right there, is you've got to create value for your target audience. You've got to create something that gives them the sense that it is worth what they paid for it, or what they're paying for it. If you don't do that, then you're going to fail. Doesn't matter how much money you put into it.
Then I guess the next question that we can ask, and actually I want kind of the audience to chime in on this. What do you guys think? Freebrand, Gemma, Old Man Garrus, I definitely want to hear your opinion on this, because you've been in the industry, as a retailer and in other spaces for a long time. I'm curious to hear your opinion. Freebrand says Helldivers is a very cinematic game. You definitely get that feel like you are the hero from time to time, and it's awesome moments. Yeah, I mean, from what you've told me, man, and from what I've seen, yeah, you're absolutely right. But I think it does. I mean, it does many things right from what I'm seeing. It does the gameplay right. It does the cinematics, the feel, the theme. It feels like it's a game that knows what it is, doesn't take itself too seriously, and delivers on what you expect. And I feel like what has led kind of the industry to be in such a slump over the last couple of years is expectations aren't being met. And I can't decide if it's the expectations aren't being met because studios aren't listening, although I do know that is an issue, or because player expectations are changing. And when I say players' expectations are changing, it could be that the expectations are getting a little too high, or it could be the expectations are, just shifting from what's delivered, and studios aren't listening. Because I'll point out one of the things that I've noticed from Palworld, from Helldivers 2, from Last Epoch, from Enshrouded. These are the games that we've mentioned. These are all indie developers, as opposed to, some of the major studios, that have put out games. Suicide Squad was the more recent one. Suicide Squad was the most recent flop.
Skull and Bones,
Diablo 4, still, a pile of steaming pile of crap. And again, that's the difference. You got these indie studios that are putting out these absolute gems, and then these AAA studios that are just trash. And part of me thinks, aside from all the other aspects that we just discussed, one begs the question: are player expectations changing? And if they are, in what form are they changing? My 2 cents is either they're getting higher, or they're changing, veering off from what's traditionally been expected from those areas, and the studios are just not listening.
Well, the way I see it, it's not that we've, as players, have changed, at least not that much. It's that a lot of these AAA studios are trying to push a particular direction that we don't exactly want. And we know what that push is. It's the live service push. Because so much of the AAA game studios or publishers these days want to push live service games because they are potentially incredibly profitable. Like we talked a bit before about how, you release a game, it's very popular for a time, and then it falls off.
They're trying to extend the shelf life.
Yeah, exactly. That's what live services want to do. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like Helldivers 2 that we're seeing right now is an example of a live service done right. But that's because they still keep their eye on what makes a good game. They're still focusing on the player experience and treating them with respect. Like I've heard people say that, when it comes to Helldivers 2 monetization, that they don't feel pressured to spend money on the game like they do with a lot of other live services, and so they feel more comfortable spending money on it. But live services that you see from a lot of other companies really do pressure you to spend that money. And like I was saying before, they're being treated like money-making machines. So they want all of your time, they want all of your money, they want all of this. And if it goes well, the profit margins are absurd. And
just look at GTA 5. That's a live service game. I think it's online too.
Exactly.
Like what, $1 billion?
Yeah, and so that's why I think, that's why I think the industry at large right now, at least when it comes to a lot of the heavy hitters, are tunnel visioning towards live services. Sony, we've if you pay attention to news coming out from them, they've talked about plans of making almost a dozen live services in the coming years.
Yeah, here's the thing. For me, as you were kind of talking about that, Matt, and I was sitting here kind of thinking, I feel like the live service model is almost a direct result of the development time for a lot of the games coming out. I say over the last 10 years that have a 10-year development cycle, 7-year development cycle, 5-year, that have a really long development cycle. I think, a live service is almost again, that's not the only reason why, but almost a direct response to that. They're like, we have to find a way, because this is the only project that we've been working on for the past 5, 6, 7, 10 years. It feels like studios are trying to extend the shelf life for this game to 10 years.
Yeah.
it's especially looking at the success of games like World of Warcraft and all that jazz.
Yeah, which
At
MMOs
least
are
I
live
can
services.
see. Yeah, I mean, I can see the why there.
Yeah, because
but-
World of Warcraft made untold amounts of money.
They still do.
I could probably find out somewhere exactly how much it's made over its very long run, but other companies want a piece of that pie. But here's the problem with everyone trying to make a live service, because what live service demands from the player is time, and a lot of it, because that's
in
part
some
of
cases,
its
yeah.
whole, that's part of its whole design. They try to retain player, they want player engagement for as long as possible. They want you playing the game all the time, not just some of the time, all the time, daily logins, all that stuff. And so if you're spending that much time on the game, how much time do you have to spend on another live service? Not much, compared if you were just to play, like, again, as we were saying before, you pick up a game, you play it, you put it down, get to the next thing. That's not how live services work, though. You pick it up and you play it, and you keep on playing it for quite a long time. Now imagine a market full of games like that. You're not getting to all of those games. Like, that's just not how it works. So in a market that becomes oversaturated with live services, you're going to see a lot of them fail, because the market can only sustain so many of them. That's why we're seeing so many within the past couple of years fail, because it's oversaturated.
The unfortunate part is it may end up being one that you like that fails.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, that's a shame, because like for the ones that have failed.
Are you suggesting that we should that the big companies should just have a monopoly on live service games?
I'm not saying
Absolutely
that, because we
not.
held out.
Hell, don't even jinx us like that.
No, that is
I'm not
all
sure
what
where
I'm
you're
saying.
going, because what I'm hearing the market's going to be oversaturated and okay, all right,
I'm
but
saying that it's not the tried and true money printing machine that they think it is.
Honestly,
I
it's a
beg to
risk.
differ,
It's a
because
huge risk.
I think it is the tried and true money printing machine that they think it is, and the reason that I say that is because there is absolutely there are no brakes being applied to any of this. It is going forward.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
that's why I'm saying that they're tunnel visioned.
that's because it works.
It's worked so far,
Unfortunately.
but we've started to see many of them fail, and with how many more that, especially like Sony is planning to come out, how many of those are going to fail?
Companies are going to fail. Games are going to fail.
Honestly, what I think
They're-
is it's going to happen is, from my personal opinion, Greg, you are right. Live service games are, whether we want to admit it or not,
There's absolutely nothing
They're the way
fair about the
way-
marketplace. That's really what it
Yeah.
comes down to. It is not a fair
Yeah.
place, and it shouldn't be a fair place, because the unfairness of it in and of itself is what creates a good environment for
game.
the consumer as well. Yes. Yes.
yeah, like as much as it pains me to say that, yes, the unfairness of it, the
So we
ruthlessness of it.
we need games that are developed that launch and fail. Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, it's heartbreaking to say that, but I agree. And as much as it sucks for those studios that go through that, I think a live service, especially at the highest level, are what's going to be the wave of the future, definitely in the near future, if not after that.
It's just it's very clear in this. Okay, all of these people, and like even what I'm talking about with the the economic situation we're in right now, and all the people, the layoffs and all that stuff, and the opportunity is there right now to get engaged, go out and create and take it to the world. Here's the thing, it might not work. But you can either be afraid to fail, and thus you're guaranteed to fail because you're never even going to try. And just the fact that you didn't try doesn't mean that you're a success. Or you can go out there and you can try. And if you provide a product that has value to the consumer and you do it in a way that's responsible, you're probably, you have the opportunity to be successful. And that's the thing. Not everybody is going to be successful. And it's about that opportunity piece. It's important that we have that opportunity piece. I hate to get too into the weeds with that, but it comes down to there's a societal debate that's out there right now, and I'll say this really quickly and then move on. But sure. Are we measuring opportunity or are we measuring outcome? Because equality of outcome is a bunch of bullshit, and nobody succeeds with that. Nobody. The market becomes stagnant, and things do not move forward. But equality of opportunity, which means the barrier to entry is low. Anybody can get in. You may not be successful. It's a risk. But you can get in. Yes, that's the key piece. And the thing is some are going to fail. And that's important that we have those that fail.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that no game should ever fail, but I think flooding the market with a certain type of game is really setting yourself up to fail. Like Sony, I think they're going in way too hard on this, and it's going to have an impact on them.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately that there will be repercussions, and Sony as a parent company will not have to face them really. The studios that are getting shut down
are the ones that studios lay off more people.
That's why I'm saying the hit for that.
This huge push for more and more live services is, in the end, damaging the industry. Like, again, live services do have a place, and we've seen them done right, but we're also seeing a lot of them done very wrong. Like, it's like chasing the low-hanging fruit. They see the potential for
shoot. There we are. Sorry about that, gentlemen.
No, you're good. I think, Greg, you said something that really kind of got me thinking. I do agree that live services are the kind of the way of the future. They're coming. They're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. But I do think that what we're going to see is studios who are trying to do live service are going to be hopefully, this is my assumption, a little bit more selective. Because I mean, you had Embracer Group was one of them, Sony's one of them, EA's one of them. They have so many projects in the works. Maybe it's too many projects. Maybe that's also what we're seeing out of this kind of again, due to economic downturn and a lot of other things. But maybe they realize we got way too many things in the fire. Let's trim down and focus on one thing. I think that's also why we're seeing indie games do so damn well, because they only got the one project. There's only the Helldivers 2, I think, coming out of Arrowhead. There's only the 11th Hour Games, which created Last Epoch. That was their only game. That was it. They were just focusing on that. And I honestly, I think that might be the industry's saving grace at the top. Stop trying to make 15 different fucking games. Make 3, 5. Make a handful of games that are good, and you can put it out to the world, and you'll make your money back, and we'll get fucking good games.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't cost $100.
That don't cost $100, and your budget isn't, $200. Your budget isn't fucking $300 million. You're not making the next fucking, Scorsese movie, Spielberg movie.
That's the thing is that I would never jump to the assumption of telling anybody in this industry like a Sony or a Nintendo or any of these people. I would never jump to the assumption of telling them how they should or should not spend their money or any of those things, because
Yeah.
they are vastly more experienced and knowledgeable. This is what they do.
Especially Nintendo.
If they didn't do it well, they wouldn't be in business. And
yeah.
so, that how much money they're going to spend on a project, they can spend as much money as they want on a project. Spend $2 billion on a project. That's fine by me. If you made a mistake, then it's your ass, not mine.
Yeah.
And the people
I don't
who
know.
gave you the money to spend.
Yeah, they're not gonna be too happy about that. I don't know. It's just looking at the turn that the industry has taken, looking at and after digging into it and looking at the financials again, not in detail, but that was available to me. It's astronomically wild that that's what projects are costing. That's how long they're taking. And again, not to say that that budget wasn't needed or the timeline wasn't needed. It's just it's that's what we're seeing on one hand, and then we're seeing on the entire opposite hand in the indie studios with way less budget, way less personnel, being successful in an order of magnitude greater. Maybe not like, mathematically speaking, like obviously, making $300 million is more than, whatever Last Epoch or Helldivers is making in terms of gross profit, obviously. But if you take it kind of in a box, Helldivers 2 is far more successful, I would say, both publicly, like in terms of reception from the community, from the gaming community, and monetarily for the studio, than Amazing Spider-Man was, especially if you're considering from the studio perspective. Where the folks at Sony were like, yeah, okay, we only made 90 million in profit. It was a bomb. On to the next thing.
So I do want to give you a counterpoint really quick, Rob.
Feel free.
I just think about this for just a moment. Do we really want the Nintendos, Sonys, and Hasbros and of the world to begin to compete on an indie scale?
That is a very good question, and the answer is absolutely not.
Exactly. We do not want that.
Absolutely not. Oh my god.
That'd be
a bad situation for everybody.
They've got the resources. Let them continue to use the resources. Don't complain about them using the resources.
As long as those resources are used right, because like Skull and Bones is a tale of misused resources, considering it constantly got shut down, rebooted, creative directors coming and going. Like, there's no doubt a lot of that 120 million budget was completely wasted. Especially if you look at the final product. Like, yeah, that's not a $120 million product right there. Like,
good for them.
Honestly, here's the thing, Matt. Based on what Greg just said, I don't care.
That's just it right there. I don't go waste your money, man. Waste it all.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, honestly, it does suck for the people having to go through that. I 100% agree. The run of the mill, developer, designer, writer, having to sit there and slog through that shit, I feel for them. But yeah, if you're gonna waste money on a bomb, well, tough shit. That's your problem.
And on the other side of that, and worrying, and there's a concerning piece when it comes to the artists, the developers, the people actually doing work. Absolutely, I agree 100%. That is a horrible experience that they have to go through. But if these guys are going to waste their money, let them waste their damn money. Let them waste their money. Companies come and go. They come and go. And, you're going to have ups and downs in your life. And honestly, if you choose to go to work for, and I'm not saying that they're a good employee, bad employer, or nothing like that, but if you choose to go to work for one of these studios that's doing shady shit, or, their focus is purely on that dollar and nothing else, then you should expect that at some point in time you're going to become the target. Some point in time, something bad's going to happen to you too. You know, and that can happen anywhere. But it's, you know, if you really are, you know, not just in it for the money, and most, you know, a lot of the people who go to, not all, but a lot of the people who go to work for those companies, that's exactly what they're going to work for. They want the money, the prestige. That's what they want. They're not even in it for creating, you know, the creation piece to it. They're probably good at creating. But there comes
that paycheck is pretty nice.
Exactly. There will come a point for you know, anybody who's in that creative space. There always comes a point where, you know, you get to a point where you're possibly comfortable, and it becomes more about your art than about the dollar. In actually, you know, creating something that people enjoy, that you really want to create that legacy piece or pieces, something that I am proud of, that I can say, hey, you know what, I maybe don't even want to tell people that I made it. I just want to see them see the reaction to it, right, to enjoy it. They don't need to know that I had anything to do with it. Just go enjoy it. This is awesome. Here you go. You know.
And you know what? This next thing I'm gonna say kind of circles back to our last episode about piracy, and is it a good thing?
Arg.
I mean,
when you put it like that, Greg, yeah. Honestly, I think piracy is an interesting topic. I highly recommend you guys go watch that. But unfortunately, the emulator community has lost a really good studio, and the thanks to Nintendo. So about a couple days ago, a studio by the name of, let's see, where are my notes? Well, I wouldn't even say studio, a group of folks.
I think the emulator was called Yuzu.
Yes, there we go.
Probably one of the much more notable emulators.
And Citra.
And Citra that really specialize in essentially like emulating Nintendo, like old Nintendo consoles. You know, the Game Boys or older stuff. And honestly, emulation is a very interesting realm because people usually treat it as people often treat it as emulation being in itself piracy, but it's not. It's essentially taking a game and running it on a different like machine. So you could using an emulator, take a game that you do have, you know, maybe it's like a Switch game, have the emulator take the ROM of that and then run it on your PC. It's like you can run games that you legally own on a more powerful machine, especially if it's for the Switch, because Switch is kind of known for not being exactly being a, you know, processing powerhouse. So sometimes you want to run your games and have them look better.
And typically emulators are for pieces that you either already own or that you can't actually go out and get anymore, like old, you know, NES games, SNES games, you know, original Mario Brothers. You can't go out and buy that anymore.
Nobunaga's Ambition.
You know, Nobunaga's Ambition. Yeah, you can't go out and get these games anymore. So emulators are when done right, because again, it's a very fine line between emulating a game and pirating a game.
I mean, it's about where you get the ROM that you're using to emulate, because you know you can get it from a game you have yourself, or you could get it somewhere else, and that's why there's the pirating that comes along with emulating. That's why the two are very commonly associated with each other.
So we're really focused on the emulator part to this. and I get that, but I mean, so what were these guys doing? Why is this?
So I mean that is essentially what they were doing. And Nintendo, I mean, you know how Nintendo is. They come after everybody. They're very cutthroat, and they've always been trying to shut down emulation, even if it's if you're using it legally from a game that you do legally own. I mean, hell, even Nintendo use emulation in their own games. You go to like the Nintendo eShop, you can find like the old Super Mario that you could run on your Switch. That's very likely using an emulator itself. So it's not that emulators themselves are illegal. It's just the fact that pirates end up using them. But what they did, well, okay, they were in a lawsuit with the creators of Yuzu. And let's see, how did they did a unique argument in the court that was different from the usual one.
So I'll cut through a little bit of this. Yes, they were emulation technology, but this particular company buried their technology behind a paywall through Patreon. So that is piracy. That's not what you were talking about. You were talking about using an emulator to play the product that you own. Sure, but what they were doing is selling a service for people to have an emulator to play these games. Different thing.
Well, you're saying the emulator itself is illegal, or simply charging for the emulator?
No, I agree with what you're saying. If you bought the emulator or whatever, you developed the emulator, you own the games, you bought the games, you want to play your old Nintendo game on your PC, hey, whatever. That's my sense of it is, yeah, okay. I mean, I don't think we should be getting in your way with that. But for me to develop a technology and put it behind a paywall and say, hey, if you pay this monthly subscription, you can use my technology to do this with your games. You as the consumer, okay, you're just basically getting, you're paying for a service. But the guy who's selling the service now, on the other hand, is that's problematic. I mean, yeah, okay, it's a service that you're providing, but I mean, what are you actually selling? And that was what the lawsuit was about. That's how they got shut down, is because they were selling this as a service to people to essentially steal games.
Yeah.
And that was Nintendo's argument: is, hey, you're affecting our game sales, and you're doing so while making money doing it. That's the bad part. If you want to make an emulator and sell your emulator, but don't charge a monthly subscription for people to use your emulator to just do whatever.
No. I will say this though, and again, I have not read the court case. That's the thing. There was no court case. This is actually settled out of court.
Yeah, they settled. So it hasn't exactly set a legal precedent for anything.
Yeah, obviously,
that was probably smart on their part, because they would have lost the court case.
Yeah, well, I think that was probably part of why, but I don't necessarily agree with Nintendo's the way they went about it, because they used a bunch of legalese to pretty much kind of skirt around a couple of points that again make emulation legal. Although here's a point for those in the audience: emulation is actually illegal in Japan. It is.
In many other countries, it isn't, such as here in America.
Like most other countries, it's not, but it is illegal in Japan. So that's point number one. With that said, Nintendo they did a bunch of legal gymnastics to make it seem like they were pirating, which in fact they were not. And unfortunately, and the reason why I bring that up is because the line between pirating, video games and emulating video games is such a thin one that, and here's the thing, emulation communities are great for the video game industry. They do what piracy does, but not illegally. They keep video games alive, at least in my personal opinion. So to kind of try and lump Yuzu and all of that, situation in kind of with piracy is a little underhanded in my opinion. And it while it doesn't set a legal precedent for it, thank God, it does set a precedent that other studios might try to use to get rid of emulators.
So really quickly, I just want to throw this out there to you, Rob. So if you create a program, a game, okay, we let's say we create a game, and we're selling our game.
Mm-hmm.
Now obviously those games are going to come with a key because you pretty much have to now. So to make sure that people are paying for it. All right.
Yeah.
And Matt develops a program which allows people to bypass our key. So they're either paying us for the product, which we created, or they pay him to use his product to use our product. That's where this is hairy. That's what the argument was. And that is... Okay, let's not call it piracy. Well, let's call it highway robbery, because that's essentially what they're highwaymen out on the road saying, pay this toll and then you can go.
Here's the thing. I do agree with both Greg. I do agree with you, Wolfen. He says Yuzu was withholding content for the emulation behind a Patreon paywall. And I agree. Don't pay if you're going to put an emulator out there. It's free. It's free. That's simple. Because then, you are making money off of the back of somebody else. I do agree with that. However, that aside, again, the concerning piece for me is how this might affect the emulation community that are doing it properly, that are not, charging for the service. Because emulation, again, it's one of those pieces within the industry, in the communities that keeps older games alive, keeps them playable. Us, we're allowed to show our kids the games that we played, and show them why they were so much fun back in the day and what we've, from where we are to what we are now. There's a little bit of nostalgia in there for me, but again, I do agree. Yes, from my research and points made, it seems like Yuzu was profiting off of old games when they should have just had the emulator out there for people to use. I mean, maybe you could have got away with charging, or we're not even charging, getting donations for the work to keep the emulator running or what, I don't know, whatever. I think there was a different way to go about making, I don't want to say a living, because hopefully they weren't doing this to make a living, but there was to make some compensation on the end for keeping that emulator up and running for folks to use on the various games.
Yeah, well, I think the important thing to understand is that an emulator is a tool, and there are right ways to use it and wrong ways to do it. And I think this whole thing kind of shakes up the community, because some of those who are using it the wrong way have pretty much brought the whole emulation community under fire.
Yeah, that's kind of what worries me.
It's typically how it works. I mean, one bad apple type of thing.
Yeah. One bad apple spoils the bunch, and this is very much a case of that.
Yeah. And you're right, Grimwolf. And if you are going to operate in the gray area, the legal gray area, you best have your ducks in a row. And ironically enough, I think this is definitely going to push a lot of folks who do run emulators and provide them for individuals. This is probably going to force them to the table, within their own spaces and communities to make sure that they got their ducks in a row. Or someone like Nintendo is going to come and demand I think it was like $2.4 million in
Yeah, the case was
settlement.
sold for $2.4 million, which to
That's
Nintendo is a
rough.
drop in the bucket, but
I
to
don't even think that's a
regular
drop in the
people,
bucket for them.
that's an immense amount of money, and so
Yeah.
that's really the scare tactic to try to
Mhm.
prevent others from doing it. And here's the thing, when it comes to even just settling a case, why they might have done that, because even if they did have a solid legal argument, you can Nintendo could keep fighting that legal battle for as long as they wanted, until they eventually
Yeah.
bleed their opponent dry when they can no longer afford their legal fees.
Yeah,
So
that is very true.
it's this weird thing where, even if you are in the right legally, if the other just has more money to keep you in the courts, keep arguing and keep on doing this, you still end up losing because you just spent all your money trying to defend yourself in court. Even if you had a solid defense, you just lost everything anyway. So that's another
Mhm.
reason why that a smaller entity may just settle, for when they're up against a giant like Nintendo.
Yeah.
Eat the rich, baby.
Um,
Oh man,
well,
Matt.
yeah, I think you have a good point. You have a good point. And you are right. Yuzu didn't really have grounds to stand on with how they were operating their emulator. Going to court was not in their best interest.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
Speaking of another giant, and it's the community. Larian Studios has come under fire by its modding community, which we're gonna get into that here in a second. But after reading through and kind of
That's what happens when you hire people from Bethesda, I think.
Damn, shade. So before we dive into this, I do want to preface this piece, and again, my personal opinion, and hopefully, people understand where I'm coming from, both the people who use mods and the modding community itself, those that mod games. There's not a studio out there. There's not a developer out there. There's not a creative out there that owes you anything in terms of communication, in terms of tools to mod their game, ever, at all, period.
Yeah, but let's talk about.
And I know that might sound like a harsh stance, but some of the shade that was getting, and they Grimwolf, you said they owe you everything because you gave them money. Yeah, they gave you a game. You got your money's worth. Keep it moving.
Wow.
I because there is an open letter from a part of the modding community with a number of signatures, but it does have a decent number of. And when I say signatures, it's obviously online handles, not people's real names.
Yeah, and most of them on this open letter are mod creators, not necessarily folks users like ourselves who use their mods to alter the game. This letter is from the modding community, the mod creators to Larian, and basically Grimwolf, and to give you kind of the nuts and bolts, the bare bones, the modding community wants more open communication between themselves and Larian when it comes to releasing updates and patches for the game, as we all know. And to be fair, the modders do address this. They're like, we do know that patches and updates break our mods. They almost always do. That's fine. It's just, according to them, and some examples that they gave in their open letter, which actually, Greg, if you want to link that, the open letter in chat,
sure.
The community can kind of take a look at it. according to the modding community, Larian Studios has been a little bit mum in terms of that communication, of letting the modders know, hey, this is what's coming out. Is what might change with the mods that you've created, and just a heads up. Although I will say this in Larian's defense, even though I don't really think they need defense because I honestly don't think they did anything wrong, they have stated that modding, while not officially supported at this time, is something that they are working on in the future. So they've addressed it, and they've also been very open about supporting mods and being appreciative of the modding community. So there is that.
So the thing that makes this a little difficult for me because we Rob
keep going. He's be right back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so the thing that makes this a little difficult for me is that I haven't done mods. I'm not part of the modding community, so I don't know what is the norm. But looking at the open letter, they talk about how there are some modders that Larian does speak directly to, but they only say it's one or two. But how normal is that? Again, I don't know if anyone watching is part of any modding communities and you know how things typically go, but I don't know how common it is for any people on development teams to speak directly to modders for their games. So the expectation for the level of communication, is that at all realistic? Because they want a lot of communication. They want to be directly talked to and all this stuff. And I feel like most companies, especially bigger ones, if you think about say Bethesda or Rockstar, do they talk at all with modders? Or do modders do they just make things completely on their own and deal with changes when a patch comes live?
I have returned. I apologize for that. To answer your question, Grimwolf, and why do modders feel entitled to information on updates before the general public? I don't know. And honestly, and again, I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. That's kind of what this open letter sounded like to me personally. They want, and Matt, I think you raised good points. It's they were asking for tons of communication. That honestly seems like it would be a hell of a lot of work on Larian's part to do that.
Yeah, and it's they are working on mod support, which a lot of games don't. And so Larian obviously recognizes the importance of mods and the benefit that can bring to their gaming community. So that's why they're working on it.
I mean, they had from what I hear and I've seen a bit myself, they had tons of modding in Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2.
Oh yeah,
I mean, to the point where you can make whole quests for people to play.
Oh yeah, I installed quite a few mods when I played Divinity Original Sin 2. So there's a lot of fun that can be done with that, and having the mod support, Steam Workshop to make things easier is a lot better than having to mod manually that you have to do with some games where you have to go to some third-party website, download the mods, and find the right place in the game files to install
it. That's a little much of a pain in the ass sometimes.
Depending on the game, some games make it easier than others. Sometimes you're okay, I got this
you got this 20 obscene file
20
path.
steps, this instructions on how to properly install this mod.
Modding has traditionally been more of a passion thing.
Oh yeah,
and exactly. Exactly.
So this is I agree with the sentiment that Grimwolfen has, and that is that this is a little much. I understand. I understand, but I mean, it's a little much. I mean,
yeah.
And the whole arguments out there about, well, we built your community, we because our mods, you're staying relevant, yada 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 yada. Come on, really?
I agree with that outlook. I agree that their mods are maybe filling in some gaps, adding some variation, may again, because they've said in the letter, and the sentiment is there where their mods are helping kind of bridge the gap that some players want to see. They're obviously definitely adding some shelf life to the game because of the replayability that comes with modding. However, if any single modder, I should say, any single modder or anybody who uses mods in the communities thinks that Larian Studios would not have staying power without their mods, you're grossly overestimating yourself. Grossly overestimating yourself. The game would be just as fantastic without a single fucking mod there. Promise you that.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Greg, that modding, for the most part, and in my experience and I've talked to modders, it's a passion project. They don't expect anything, definitely not from the fucking studio, but usually not even from the people that use their mods. They put it free. These are people who have some free time, who have the skills. They do it. People like it. Great.
Right.
Now I've seen more and more now with people either put up a Patreon or there are donation links, and if you feel like you want to donate, great. But yeah, this open letter seems Grimwolf, and you're right. It seems like they're asking for a little too much, and the way it's coming across, it feels like less of an ask and more of a demand.
Yeah,
like you owe us kind of deal.
That's exactly where it's at. The modding community definitely fills a gap. But this is it becomes a little ridiculous when they start making demands of the developers of you need to tell us first. We need to know so that we can make our adjustments and so the program works, yada yada yada. And especially when you start adding in the monetization piece to it, okay, write your letter. I highly doubt that Larian or any other studio is going to, oh my goodness, they're upset, let's cave into their demands. No. They're probably going to quietly, behind their own closed doors, say, F you. Just keep doing what you're doing. We'll allow you to keep doing what you're doing because it benefits both of us, but you can take your letter and, it's worth about as much as the toilet paper you're going to wipe your ass with.
Maybe, and I mean, again, I'm not trying to be harsh or ugly here. It's just modding has always been a passion project. No modder that I've ever known, that I've ever spoke to, and I know quite a few, have ever said, "Yeah, I'm looking for a buck." I mean, it would be nice for them to get paid. They would admit that because it does take a hell of a lot of time and skill to do this, but. Any one of them would, two brain cells to rub together won't sit there and be like, yeah, it's like, I'm choosing to do this. People enjoy it, great. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, granted that this debacle, it's not about money. It's purely
not
about communication and the fact that they want more. They want more communication.
Which actually is kind of about money in a way. Because in one of the things they were saying, hey, add more moderators to the Discord. It means you got to hire more people.
I mean, that is true. It's it's not that the moderators themselves are expecting any money, but they do expect essentially work from Larian, which, costs Larian money. And again, the
Grimwolf, and you're right, it is a nothing burger. It's just ironic to me that it's gotten to this point. Because especially with the community, like the modding community.
Well, this group that wrote this letter is probably a small, it's not like it's the entire modding community is represented by, this is just a particular group that has decided
it's less than 50. It's less than 50 names. Definitely it's small community. As a matter of fact, I'll give you a count.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I don't know how many people out there are currently modding Baldur's Gate 3, so I don't know the total size of that community. But I think most modders kind of know the expectation of like, yeah, they're probably not going to talk to me at all. So it's just, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And that's just how it is.
I gotta say, I commend what the modders are doing. I mean, I don't want to sound that way because I mean,
Oh, yeah, no.
they do a lot of really great things for the gaming community by and large.
Yeah, like what would we do without our big titty mods?
Oh wow, man! I tell you,
Without our kitty mods.
Matt,
Listen, every game needs a big titty mod. It's always made. It's the first thing that gets made every time.
I mean, he's not wrong. He's really not wrong. The first things that are made in games are titty mods and how you get naked mods.
So Matt's one of those guys that makes a female character just to improve the view.
I wouldn't be surprised. I'm pretty sure he probably does.
I'm just picking at you, but I will say this though: when it comes to things like this, don't I respect you guys, the modding community, a tremendous amount, but don't try to leverage the good reputation of or even the bad reputation of some of these studios that are out there working hard to create these games and get them out to us. Because that's what this letter does. It tries to leverage that reputation and say, hey, without us, this, that, and the next thing. Don't do that. That just it makes
you look like an asshole. Sorry, let me correct you. You look like a douchebag. I'm an asshole, and I take offense to that. You look like a douchebag.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Like, if you want to make a mod, make your mod. No one's putting a gun to your head and telling you to make this. You're choosing to make it.
Even
if you want support from Larian, and they've said they're going to put out support when they do that, up to them. Entirely up to them.
Amen, so, brother.
Take it on the fucking chin. If your mod breaks, go and fix it. And I'm not saying you can't ask for more communication. You can't, be like, hey, it'd be great if we can collaborate and talk, like, hey, this is what's coming out, and maybe we, that communication can happen, but your letter does not. At least certain yeah, exactly. At least in certain points, you're not asking, you're demanding.
Right. Well, and why open letter? Why open letter? Because they're trying to leverage that reputation. Basically, they're trying to gather the fan base to get behind their cause, create a cause to go after this studio. Write your damn letter and send it to Larian. Don't. What are you doing? What are you doing?
That is actually a very good point, Greg. I didn't even think about that. You are 100% right. They're and whether they know it or not, and I would wait.
Oh yeah, they know exactly what they're doing. Know
it. They are trying to leverage Larian's goodwill and the community that's behind the game to push this particular agenda. And it's not necessarily a bad agenda. It's just, again, you're not asking, you're kind of demanding.
Yeah, I think that's like the biggest thing about it. It's
for
just
something
like the
that
way
is
they're going about it.
Yeah, for something that is, you're essentially volunteering to do this stuff for Larian, and not even for Larian. You're doing it for yourself because it's something you want to see in the game, and you have the skills, so you're making it.
And then trying to leverage the community to get more, to be able to do more, and feel like you're they're going to make you a part of the development team. Essentially, that's what you're demanding. Is to know the changes before they come, so that you can do what exactly? No,
they can adjust their mod.
I would be very happy if Larian actually answered their open letter and basically told them to go pound sand. I mean, I'd be very happy with that. It's not going to happen, but yeah,
probably not. At least not openly, they won't say that. And if they do, and again, I'm not trying to make any bets, but if they do, you know what? Hey, tip my hat to you, Sven, because that's I don't know, that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth.
I mean, I think that's the common consensus from like most people I've seen that have talked about this, where again, if you want to ask for more and better communication, feel free. But like the demanding bit of it is what just rubs a lot of people the wrong way, because asking and demanding are two very different things.
I don't know. That was surprising, actually.
Yeah, again,
yeah.
it's kind of like a case of a vocal minority that,
Yeah.
just you find it all the time. Vocal minority raises a stink about something, and maybe sometimes they're right, maybe sometimes they're wrong. In this case, common consensus is that they're a little overreaching.
Well, and
No,
here,
absolutely.
you know, they absolutely have a, you know, I'll put it this way, they absolutely have a right. I mean, absolutely, you can do that. You can create your open letter, and you can throw that out there, and you can do whatever it is that you think you want to do. And I can express that I totally disagree with you, and I think that what you did is bullshit. That's it.
Essentially, I mean, if you're
Agreed.
putting it out as an open letter, they're opening yourself up to have people criticize you.
Yeah. And honestly, I do agree with you, Greg. They should have just reached out to Larian directly, because I know some of those modders probably even either they're friends with, or they know someone who knows the developers, because that's essentially kind of what happens when you become a well-known modder. You start to get, people start talking, because essentially you're developing for the game, just in an unofficial capacity. Grimwolfen says open letters are used to leverage public opinion, but they don't have the support to just come off as entitled. Larian should just mostly. I agree. Yeah, and you're right. Yeah, that's essentially what open letters are. They're there to arouse community support, essentially.
Yeah, which I don't think is. There are some causes where doing that is good. If Larian were in fact doing something actually really shitty for their modding community, leveraging the community at large could be a good thing to do, to try to pressure Larian to do the right thing. But in this case, it just doesn't. This doesn't seem like one of those, good causes. As you say, Grim, they do come off as entitled to more communication than they already get, which, by their own admission, they do get some. There are a couple. There are like one or two modders that do actually privately talk with the people at Larian about these things. They just want more. And again, I don't know how most modding communities go, or what, if the one or two people being talked to is a usual thing or not. Off the top of my head, I don't feel like that probably is a little unusual.
I would say it's not unusual for modders and developers to communicate. Probably unusual privately, meaning like, like let's say I'm a developer, you're a modder, like in DMs, it's probably communicated. If we are communicating, it's probably in like a back room on an official channel where everybody in the company, or at least the development team can see it. Like, you're not talking to me privately, kind of deal. But they do talk to each other. I mean, there's been a lot of modders in other games like Guild Wars 2 that have modded or created things, like wrote stories. People that basically are doing the same thing, where they're creating content on their own volition, but it's good enough where the actual studio is taking notice. Oftentimes those people get hired.
It's just like doing an internship for
exactly.
a student out of college. I mean, some companies pay interns, but most don't. You're going to go work for free to get the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, modding, it's a good way to polish your skills, and also have something to show, essentially as a portfolio piece. If you're looking to get a job, it's honestly good to do it.
Practice.
So in this case, it's the interns who came to you and asked you for the opportunity to gain the experience and do this with the product, who are now saying, now you should pay us. It's like, yeah, well, I didn't need you to begin with, so why would I need you now?
Yeah, or you could be like Bethesda, and they just. I honestly, you're not wrong, Grimwolf, and Bethesda has stolen ideas before.
I was gonna say, if anybody should have done something like this, honestly, I would, and I still don't commend the idea behind it, but I think if it was gonna be against anybody, there's a really big target out there that could possibly have been deserving at one point in time, because
Oh,
Bethesda took a
so-
lot of the modding community's ideas and incorporated them into the game and basically gave them a big
Yeah.
fu.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
they did like strip steal the mods, but they took the concept of the mods
Right.
and made their own versions of it, which often were kind of
still fucking
inferior
stealing.
to the original mod.
Yeah,
But-
it's inferior to the original mod, and while you're not stealing, it's fucking stealing. Let's call it what it is.
No, I mean, if you recall, like when the before the GTA remastered trilogy came out, they Take-Two, the company above of Rockstar, who owns Rockstar, essentially started sending cease and desist to many mod makers, specifically mod makers that improved the graphical fidelity of the original GTA games. It's like retextures, stuff like that. They sent them cease and desist and got those shut down so that they could sell their, GTA 5 trilogy remastered, which, I mean, we all know how that went. That went bad because the tools that they used to, retexture everything to make them look pretty were janky as shit and made everything look worse. But that was an instance of a company going directly after their modding community, and needless to say, that didn't earn them any positive PR.
No.
So
not-
again, if there were targets for this type of open letter to leverage community against them, Bethesda or Take-Two would definitely be the ones deserving of such a thing.
I don't
Larry.
suggest using the open letter format, and part of it's because of what you were actually talking about, Matt, and that is the fact that this whole idea of rallying the community it's impactful if it's used sparingly. It's not
Oh, yeah, it should be
impactful,
done
and it's
all the time.
right, because it loses its impact and nobody cares. They have to actually be concerned. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah, it should be done over like as
kind of the whole walk softly and carry a big stick, and you tip your hand and you don't actually have a big stick. So
yeah, pretty much.
eh.
Yeah, it's just regular old stick.
Ah,
Yeah, it is.
It,
Just
it,
regular
was
old
Found it in my
stick.
yard after a storm,
it was just, I don't know. It was interesting to see that piece come out, and it came out a couple days ago, I think. That said, we do have some housekeeping items to take care of.
Housekeeping. Walk loud and carry a small stick. Okay, Grim. Oh,
That's one way to do it.
Why not?
there you go. I mean, So yeah, housekeeping. What do we got, man?
Well, we've got let's see. Tomorrow's episode, Greg. What are we doing for that? Do you have any plans? Are we happening there?
Yes.
Wait a minute.
From
Hold
what
on.
you told me, Greg, that right now this is like a to be determined type thing because Greg does have something going on tomorrow.
He does.
Mhm.
I just looked at the date. I was like, wait a minute, today's something special.
Oh, yeah.
Tomorrow's
So-
something special.
Greg might be able to DM, he might not. I think that's a
Right.
situation
It's-
where keep an eye on the Discord, everyone. If you're not part of the
Mhm.
Discord, join the
Yes.
Discord, and we will let you guys know as soon as possible if there's going to be a stream tomorrow or not.
And
My apologies.
definitely-
I completely forgot.
Yeah, definitely apologize that it's gonna have to be a last minute thing. But I if at all possible, we will be running a game stream tomorrow night. I just can't really. I'm not even gonna speak to what it is yet. Cyberpunk, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just keep we will keep you guys posted via the Discord. So if you're not a member, please join. And aside from that, episode 43 of the Update Log will be next Wednesday. We do have GaryCon stuff coming out. Obviously, we've been talking about it for a number of months now, but as the time grows closer and closer, we are extremely excited. We are doing 2 virtual games, one the Witcher TRPG and one the Cyberpunk Red TTRPG out of Artal Sorian. They are actually our supporters for this Gary Con event, which Greg will actually be at to DM a very special module that we are creating called Beyond the Black Wall. I'm pretty sure that's the title, right?
Beyond the Wall.
Yep.
Yeah, Beyond the Black Wall.
Okay, Beyond the Wall. Yeah, its title is one of those two, but Beyond the Wall.
It's beyond some kind of wall.
Yeah, there's some kind of
There's a wall.
the walls
There is a wall. Know that, guys.
We're beyond it. Yeah.
And we have,
Greg will be DMing that at GaryCon in addition to a Witcher one shot that we're putting together. Yeah, we're really excited to showcase the Cyberpunk Red. It's basically a 4-part series that kind of culminates into a kind of chapter 1 of a much larger story that we have plans to turn into a fully fleshed out module for you guys to play.
yeah. It's essentially Act 1 of the full story that we're planning to
Put out.
still put out. Yeah.
So that is GaryCon. That is next week's episode. We'll be again diving into our usual industry news.
Next Thursday, we will definitely have a game.
Oh, okay. We'll be back to regularly scheduled program next Thursday.
I can do. It's in the following Thursday will be GaryCon. So the following.
Yes.
I am going to try to do. I'm going to try and do some live streaming from GaryCon, but it's probably not going to be, like episodic like this. It'll probably be, more than likely, I will probably do it through TikTok, because that's an easier place to do this on the phone, do some TikTok lives. And, possibly introduce some interesting folks that will be at the con. So.
Yep. But with that said, I believe that is the end of episode 42 of the update log. Thank you guys very, very much for joining us tonight. It is, as always, a blast to have you guys. Stay tuned for updates about tomorrow and about GaryCon. Again, if you are able to make it there live and in person, please say hi to Greg. He's a people person. Look at him.
No, it's gonna be a lot of fun, and I've already started. We've already started getting information out to the players. Our games for GaryCon, there's 8 games that I'm going to be running. They're all full. They filled up right away, so we've got communication going on with the players, getting the pre-gen information out to them, and some storyboard information as we go here. And some really awesome people. So I'm really looking forward to having that opportunity to sit down at the table with them and tell some really great story. So it's exciting. Very exciting.
Absolutely exciting. I'm super fucking excited.
I barely contained myself. I saw, it was you guys did all the talking tonight. I'm like, oh man.
And next time we'll let you do all the talking.
Shut the old man up. Anyway.
So with that said, guys, that is it. We're going to call it for tonight. That is it.
All right.
That's episode 42.
With that, I will get us a raid going. And let me see. Where are we going to go?
Where are we going this time, Greg?
Where are we going? We are going to go...
He's fast on the trigger as always, guys.
Yes, super fast on the trigger and doing all those great things. Tell you what, we are going to go see somebody who you follow, Matt. I follow as well. But we're going to pop into Brett Ultima's stream tonight.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
see what they're doing. They run games regularly. They are VR streamers. Good stuff. So show them a little love, spread some joy, and we'll see you maybe tomorrow night, but for sure next week.
Yep.
Have a good night.
All right. Adios, folks.
All right.